What is the Schomburg Center? To me, it is home. The place where we come to see who we really are, not just somebody else's reflection of who we are.
The Schomburg Center is a place of culture, it's a place of history, it's a place of knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is a repository of all of the things that has documented our sense of worth as a people.
For me, that means that it is a place of immense power.
The Schomburg Center is a public research library and a cultural institution
for the study of the Pan-African world.
It is perhaps the best in the world.
My Schomburg Center is Arturo Alfonso Schomburg.
Arturo Schomburg said, Black history and culture and intellect exists at a time when most people didn't believe that. He collected those evidences, and that became the beginning of the collection.
And it has expanded and has grown to where it is now a world-class institution.
It holds over 10 million items.
There's no parallel anywhere that brings to light what we as people of color have done, what we continue to do.
Black culture is all of culture. The universals that animate everyone's life happen here for all people.
The Schomburg for me is one of the center pillars of Harlem. When I started the journey of finding out about Red Rooster and Harlem, the very first place I went to was the Schomburg.
Researchers from around the world come and use what we have here.
I could not have written just about any of the books that I've written without the Schomburg Center's archives, resources.
The Schomburg Center is much more than a library. We encourage lifelong learning and exploration.
The Junior Scholars Program is a Saturday program with students from 5th grade to senior year in high school to help them learn about Black history and culture.
Learning about my history is important because it teaches me who I am.
The Schomburg Junior Scholars Program is going to do nothing but uplift them.
So many talented and brilliant people have walked the corridors of this amazing institution over the years. From Octavia Butler to Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, Ella Fitzgerald, Alvin Ailey, and Harry Belafonte, who graced the stage in this room of the American Negro Theater.
This place evokes great memories. It was a gift to us in our community to really try to find that space to reflect expressions of Black experience. I just knew that the environment and what I saw these young African Americans doing was a place I needed to be.
What is my Schomburg Center? I'm standing here at the Cosmogram, which underneath holds the ashes of the poet Langston Hughes. On the evening when this Cosmogram was dedicated, people began to empty out of the auditorium. A jazz trio struck up, and to my amazement, Amira Baraka went over and asked Maya Angelou for a dance. And they started to dance on top of the Cosmogram, on top of the ashes of Langston Hughes, and I felt what a fitting way to kiss the memory of Langston.
The Schomburg Center is a research institute and a library, but it's so much more than that.
There's something going on every day.
So many amazing people come here to talk about their creative craft, to share what inspires them. The Schomburg Center's collections help to tell stories even beyond our walls.
The Schomburg Center is here in this exhibition at MoMA, One-Way Ticket, Jacob Lawrence's Migration Series. We depend on the resources of the Schomburg to enable us to tell this story. Thinking about the implications of the past on the present is absolutely crucial for understanding the next steps, understanding what we have to do to go forward.
We today have the responsibility of making sure that new artists and activists, new scholars and poets know that this place continues to be a resource and a source of inspiration for the work that we must continue to do.
The Schomburg Center is knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is education.
The Schomburg Center is home, it is family, it is foundational.
The Schomburg Center is inspiration.
The Schomburg is with me in everything that I do.
Community, inside and out.
The Schomburg Center is us.
The Schomburg Center is you, and we invite each and every one of you to find your Schomburg Center.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. I am Michael Bowman, the event manager of Schomburg Special Events, and I would like to introduce Stanley Nelson.
Hi, everybody. How you feeling? Good. Welcome to your Schomburg Center. I think you're in for a great treat tonight. I've seen the film already, and it's incredible. And you have a great panel afterward. So the film is Black Girls Play the Story of Hand Games. Okay, so if anybody's here to see something else, the latest Spider-Man film, they're in the wrong place. After the film, you have a great panel. Kiana Jackson, one of the producers of the film. Marsha Cook, executive producer of ESPN Films and 30 for 30, which we all love. And Michéle Stephenson, one of the directors of the film. Three strong, beautiful, wonderful black women, creative black women to talk about this incredible film. Hope you enjoy it, and I don't know if they're going to take questions from the audience, but there's nodding yes. But I will say before we start, just make sure your questions are in the form of a question. Okay? I've been on this stage before, so all right. Enjoy the film. Thank you so much.
And, oh, did someone just say they like my afro? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to say for the record, I don't usually get to do that in other spaces, so thank you for allowing me to do that. What a beautiful film. It is about joy, I think, for all of us. So I'd like to introduce Michéle Stephenson, one of the directors of the film.
Hello. Hi.
And producer Kiana Jackson.
Hello.
Okay, oh, wait. So we're gonna have a little discussion, maybe about 15, 20 minutes, and that includes Q&A, and as the esteemed director, Stanley Nelson said, think about your question, make sure that it's a question. We've got microphones in the back, but really looking forward to this conversation. So, let's get started. Michéle, Kiana, can you talk to us a little bit about what was the inspiration for this film?
Well, the inspiration, came out of, actually, I'll use some of this analogy, some call and response dialogue with Adam Newhouse was at development with you, and I think you had just sort of come on board, trying to find the right project for Joe and I, my partner, to engage in. And what's interesting is Adam had seen a film that we did, short, called The Changing Same, which is about a lynching, powerful film, but I think there was something about it because it was about a poet who was resisting by the name of Lamar, and it piqued his curiosity, and as we continued the conversation, Kira Gaunt and her work came across, I think, his table, and he made the connection. You, Michéle and Joe, this should be your project. We think that this is something that you can really take to the next level. And he was right. For us, it was really fit what we were looking to do. What's really wonderful, too, is that ESPN Films was looking to also expand. What does play mean? What do games mean? What does sports mean? What does it mean for Black women? And how do we incorporate that into that larger scheme? So the stars became aligned, and that's how sort of we took off and brought Kiana on.
That was a wonderful phone call to get from Michéle. Like, we have a project, it's cooking, it's starting. And it's really about traditions and keeping traditions alive, and it's about hand games and movement. And the research began. It started with Kira's work, and it just branched out from there because it really touches so many aspects of, who we are as Black people existing in this world. And I think that was something that was really exciting to draw connections between. So,
what do you want the audience to feel and experience with this film?
Well, I think for me, when I make film, not that it's a selfish endeavor, but there is a healing aspect to every story that I engage in. And if I'm feeling healed, I think that there's a groundedness that others will as well. Because I'm part of a larger community. So I think that that's where it starts. I don't necessarily like the idea of messaging to others, because art is art and we all will take different things from it depending on what we bring to it. But what I know from me, and as I rewatch the film, there are so many elements. One is the act of just resistance through joy, through play. What does it mean for us to carry a tradition that hasn't been sort of given the space to appreciate? But also, there's something about play and our play that I think can serve as a reference for us to think about how do we change our own human interactions beyond this the game notion of win-win-win all the time. What does it mean to collaborate? And I think there are things that are carried on in the games that we have played that can serve as a reference. So there's so many things, and depending on when I watch it, there's other things that come, but for me, that was sort of at the core. Also the idea of resistance and Marveline's story being so critical to understanding how healing happens. Yeah.
I think I mentioned tradition and you mentioned tradition. Like, it just feels like keeping a tradition alive and passing down a history and passing down a story. And like you said, collaboration and communication. It feels like something we don't always get to do, and to do it in such a way that we all have that connection to and we all remember, and it's fun as well, like that playful, fun aspect. It just feels really important. And so when people watch this, I don't know, I want them to understand and to feel in awe of these traditions the same way I do, because listen to Kira, it dates back. Like, it's nothing new. So it's been a real honor to be a part of this history and a part of keeping it alive.
Yeah, I would want to say something about Kira Gaunt. The work that she's doing is so critical to laying a stake on the ground, and for this idea of re-looking at this, what Saidiya Hartman talks about, the afterlives of slavery, re-looking at our traditions, looking at re-archiving in a way that centers us in the story. And so it's so important, one, to recognize it, but also then to look at it and see what can it teach us that can help us sort of shift the direction we're going in, you know?
But one of the things that I am struck by every time, and all of us here have seen the film so many different times, but yet we keep seeing something new and different. But a constant theme for me personally is how erasure happens. And that this film and the story of Hand Games is about Black girl creativity, yet when we see grown men continuing to play their games, and girls are in some way taught, you play that as a child, and then you have to let those games disappear. This is a hidden story. Why is that? I mean, outside of the obvious, well, it's about us, and then it becomes problematic when we create things and we don't get credit. So is this film, for the both of you, an attempt to write the historical record?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've all probably had a moment where we feel like we haven't been able to step into our own, and so watching a film and being a part of making a film where I see us drawing connections between Beyonce and Missy Elliott and Ciara, and girls who are creating dances and actively contributing to our social well-being. Like during COVID, we were all on TikTok. So it's just like we see these girls contributing so much, and we get so much out of it. And so to be able to draw those connections between people that, you know, win Grammys and play the Super Bowl and all this stuff, it felt so valuable. And it was definitely, I mean, you already said healing. It was definitely really healing to be a part of that and to think, okay, well, how can I now take some of what I've seen and what I've learned and incorporate it into how I carry myself and how I show up, so.
The thing is, a narrative is what, in some ways, makes us human. It's what defines us. And as we leave those narratives that we've created in our games as young women, because of whatever societal systemic oppression that happens around patriarchy or racism and other things that push us internalize, where we end up internalizing, and this idea of our own self-worth becomes part of sort of maintaining a system of inequity, right? And so as narrative makers, as storytellers, it is sort of a duty for us to build this alternate narrative where we see ourselves, but where also future generations will see themselves and have that reference that I hope will feed, further resistance, further pushing for change. So in some ways, narrative is everything, and what we tell ourselves and how we tell our stories. Because you see, the part of what was happening in what Kira Gaunt points to is, the hip hop appropriation of the women's hand games and ways of communicating and music, and that erasure leads to this loop of us not thinking like that we're worthy of it when they took it, right? And so one of the counter sort of warrior motions we have to do is tell that alternate story. And it's really important for us to recognize people like Kira Gaunt, the work that Marveline Moore is doing too in Kentucky, in Tennessee, and be able to create those spaces. And I think this is why sort of, ESPN films and the shorts, the 30 for 30 shorts are so important, because then you reach even a wider audience in sort of creating that alternate narrative,
What I think is also going to happen as people see this film more and more is they will realize that hand games are not only ubiquitous, they are not just here in America, they're in Latin America, they're in South America. We recently had a conversation with the director of the African Film Festival, who wants to pair this film with films of a similar nature that I think are in Ghana, and that these hand games are everywhere, but we don't talk about them, right? So what is the way that you think about how these games have endured? Why have these games endured, and how have they endured?
There are two kind of levels to that. I think one is just the pure importance of play. There's a lot of research out there now that shows that play is a mode of socialization for us across the board, from wherever community we come from. Play plays a specific role in sort of establishing certain cultural traditions, understanding boundaries, playing with boundaries, thinking about what does it mean to share, who I am, and how do I define myself within the group. So there's that aspect that is just part of our sort of DNA. Play is the beginning of our socialization. And then it gets sort of, influenced by systemic forces. But in our case, in that play has been what, Kira and Marveline spoke to, this embodiment of a history that has been repressed, but that play also is about, you cannot erase my humanity. It's going to survive. It's going to persist and thrive, because that is what we are. We are human. And in this particular case, it takes an expression through the play of Black girls. And that is the incubator, the flame. At one point we were thinking about, it's a little kind of kitschy, but the flame being a metaphor, sort of the carrying of the flame, but this idea that, and they mention it, you're gonna stop the drum, we're gonna do this. Oh, you're gonna stop this, then we're gonna do this, because we're humans, that's what we do. And so at the core, that's what that play is an expression of. And that's why sort of I was talking about earlier, is that what can we learn from play the way we have done it in this call and response, individuality and collectivity, the non-winner takes all, or one person leads. What can we learn from that has been carried on that could teach us?
Absolutely, and I just remember as we were working on it and just thinking about the pillars that Kira talked about that you just mentioned, how it was like this reflective process of learning more about it and then kind of improvising an approach to better incorporate what we were seeing and hearing into how we were communicating. And I just thought that that was such an interesting live kind of way of interacting with a subject that I don't know that I've quite gotten to do before, where it was really impacting how I thought about what ended up on screen. And I just thought that, I don't know, that was something that really rolled in ourselves.
Yeah, I do want to add to that in that but how we engage in that creative process is now more conscious and intentional in terms of the voice of the others on the team and how we work towards a greater sort of creative goal. So it's sort of, it's been carried on now in how we, in our practice, in a more conscious way, because I think some of it, we were doing it unconsciously.
I'm going to now open the floor to questions, because I have a feeling that there are going to be some questions about this film. See, I knew it. And if you could, I thought that was going to be a question. No. Oh, sorry. Okay, well then, you know what? Okay. Yeah.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Michéle, and thank you for this film. I really appreciate it. The question I have is, what is the role in technology in bringing a new rereading of Black culture expression? Because for me, movement, sound, and speech are one unit of like communication in Black culture expression. So what's the role do you think that technology can play in this? Because this is an area I'm actually exploring as a creative technologist myself.
That is a PhD thesis question. All I can say about the experience that we had with the TikTok dances that were going on is we could see that Black women were leading that. Mm-hmm. The danger was, again, the appropriation and the recognition, right? Which is the full danger of all technology, right? So this is the other thing about Black Atlantic culture, and that, we will create, we will innovate appropriation, but there is response. There's bigger response now, I think, but yeah.
I think that in a slightly different way, but related to something that we've already kind of talked about, is that there's a connectivity that comes with technology, and the way that you were talking about how hand games were being seen in Ghana, in South America, in the US, and they're all the same, and there's a similar thread. I think that serves to make us feel less alone in these games that we play and the things that are important to us, and that will only encourage us. Like, that will make it so that more continues to happen and that more continues to press forward. Of course, the appropriation is always going to happen. That's always
I think the only one of those dangers is who's going to make the money off of that again, which is the same thing that happened with hip hop, right? So that's the thing. How do we counter that? And I think, I don't want to say there were lawsuits, but there were pursuits of the actual intellectual property of some of those dances in the TikTok space.
What about interactive technologies, not just media like on TikTok, like interactive technologies?
I think we should go to someone else. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, good evening. My name is Nakia Haskins, and I founded an all-girls elementary school. And in doing that as the principal and like wanting to go to recess, right? So it was about teaching girls to jump double dutch, some of the hand games. So I was wondering, is there a repository? Because like, as we're watching these films, you could hear, I heard my peers finishing some of these songs, right? I also can recognize that it's also regional, right? So how we might say it in Brooklyn might be different from how we say it in Harlem, maybe different from how we say it in North Carolina. But after visiting the National Museum of African American Art, I just see people being able to go into rooms and record like their family's histories and those sorts of things. But is there an idea, or is there a repository of these games, right? The girls are doing their dances, but I don't see hand games on TikTok. And I was just wondering, as an educator, I don't see girls doing it anymore. Like if I don't go to recess and do it, I don't see my teachers doing it. I don't really see kids outside playing, period. But like, how do we record this and just say, like, this is what Black girls do? Because it still happens.
Well, let's start with the film. The film is the beginning of that repository. And it's so interesting because this is the second time this question has been asked, and the previous person was also an educator, an academic. So I can feel like from an academic perspective, it's like, so where's the library of hand games? Who will build it? And will there be a curriculum with that?
We'll write the curriculum. You just give us the resources. Because I think it's important. I was watching, I'm like, my niece doesn't do this. And like the Color Purple is coming back out, and we all do this. It is something that, as a child of the 80s, is something that is vital to who we are. We remember it, as well as doing like the cheers on the corner as well. But there is no record of it. And so I was just wondering your thoughts on either creating the repository, even if you did it as a challenge, like as a TikTok challenge, and then just having everybody just join in and do their hand games. But I think the film is a great launch for it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Question and comment.
This
Sorry.
is sort of beyond our sort of scope of skill set.
But thank you for the question, and congratulations on your school. Thank you.
Hello, hi. My question is, during your research of Black Girl Hand Games for the film, were you able to find any connections between step or step dancing usually found in Black cheer or sororities?
Yes, we really found connections to so much that, you know, they had to cut us off. They said, this is a short. We absolutely did. I mean, I think that that's what the fun of it is, because it kind of brings so much to the forefront of your mind when you understand, like, we've been doing this, and just like step, I don't know, I don't think that there's a huge appreciation for that art form. And like you mentioned, it's not something that you see young girls getting into. I mean, at my school, we tried to have a step team, and everyone was like, okay. Like, they walked away from it. And so I don't know. I think that was definitely something that came up, but we did have to focus.
Yeah, and we even add some archival that in one of our versions that we had included some step in there, and then the archive process was very intense and difficult. So, yes.
I was going to ask the question of what was left out of the film. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you guys very much.
Hi.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that was the same question I have, because when you guys were talking about sports and, you know, how men kind of get to do sports like older into age, my school had like a very, very creative and very good step team that like blew up on TikTok, and I felt like they were super sporty. So I'm glad that question got answered, but I just wanted to say that I was super curious as to why I didn't see it, and so it's sad that it's got archived, so thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Kojo.
Asante Sana. Thank you for a beautiful masterpiece. My question is around male filmmakers. I see the brilliant director Stanley Nelson there. What have you seen in your research around African American male filmmakers being sensitive to this whole history and process of games for female? Because I remember growing up in Harlem, being native, and playing those games and dancing double dutch and things like that. And some of us who was doing it we will call names. We will call sissies and different things like that, playing with it. So it's like dance. Young men may drift into playing basketball and football and things like that and not cultivate a continual interest in playing those kind of games with sisters, and they found a camaraderie and a love and a community in doing that. We did. Doing hand games, it was like playing basketball, except we were playing with the opposite sex from our community. Young ladies that we knew, we grew up with, went to school with, our sisters, our cousins, or whatever it may be. But we had a community there in that experience. So my concern is that it's not about labeling young men when they do something the opposite of what some other young men may have been interested in, but we found community and friendship and just happiness in that act of sharing.
Thank you.
Hi.
Another
question.
Yes, one more question.
Great.
I'm curious because you used the phrase appropriation by hip hop. So what has been their response? What has been the male response? Like that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, let's go for it. Let's go for it.
Let's just say when I said the archival process was difficult, the most difficult were the hip hop clips. Clearing that. They asked for a lot of money. So kind of full circle, right? So, so we have to pay that much for something that you took from us and we're showing that? So that was the arduous process. So that was the response in the making. We haven't heard yet in terms of what, the response will be once this is out, as well. But in the making, those were the most difficult clearances for us. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I mean, I feel like we kind of just heard a response from just like maybe not necessarily hip hop in terms of appropriation, but in terms of the fact that everyone can find community in this. And just because it was relegated over here and diminished because it's young Black women doing it, doesn't mean there's not value there. And so, I don't know, I hope more people understand that they could get that sense of community. They can get this sense of strength out of like this nostalgic reaching back and understanding. So yeah.
One thing that Kojo mentioned earlier that I think is really important is this idea that as we grow older, well also, the playground is also the space for role playing and for segregation in terms of boys do this, girls do that, and nothing in between, and defining those, and it becomes stricter and stricter in some ways as we grow, and it hurts us all. Right? It's not just us. It hurts everyone. This inability for fluidity, for communication that becomes more and more rigid. It's not necessarily that the basketball players are having all the fun. There's this other aspect to it that is being fed that doesn't fit everybody, doesn't fit the mold for everyone.
Hi there. I have a quick question. My name's Phil Lynn. I work here as an usher, and this evening I noticed that there are perhaps less than a half a dozen men in attendance, and being the father of 3 daughters who also played hand games, and watching the film, such a joyous occasion really, the gathering to play the games. What do you think you can do to get more men involved and interested in supporting this historic form of music that's been overlooked?
It's not really my role, to tell you quite frankly. I'm here to tell the story that
Yeah,
that
you made
allows
this-
me
you made
to
it.
heal and to, and once, yeah, that's my.
Maybe the ESPN VP could address how you can spread it into a broader community of patriarchy. How's that?
Whoa. Okay. I would simply say that the fact that ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, is the platform for this film is everything. That's it. Yeah. So, thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Leanne Dempsey. I am curious about, as we're putting this together, did you see any effect on the last 3 years of young people who were basically in a situation during the pandemic where touching was in hands were now to be held back? And was there an effect of that? Is that maybe why we see TikTok, right? Is there anything that you've seen in the effects of the COVID pandemic?
No, I mean, like Michéle was saying, we were really in the middle of filming as restrictions were kind of coming up. And honestly, the kids that we filmed with were so excited to get together and to be together, because I think, like you said, there'd been so much time when they weren't allowed to be in person. And while a lot of kids maybe aren't playing like in their neighborhoods and they're not whatever, the world has changed a lot. And so to give kids the opportunity to safely come and gather, for example, we were in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we were hearing a lot of things about just the state of the city and how kids could not be together, and it wasn't for COVID reasons, it was for safety. And so to have people gather in a playground near their school and do hand games together, they were so excited, and they were doing the hand games, and then they started showing us other dances and other things that they were doing together. They were trying to teach us, they were pulling us in, and so I don't know that COVID really, obviously had an impact on kids, but I really do think that on a certain level, kids are always going to be kids. They're always going to want to be together and explore together and do new things. So I don't know that I saw an impact with the kids that we filmed with, but I saw an excitement, and that might have been a byproduct, really.
Yeah. And if I'm following your thought pattern, I think that TikTok and that platform is the natural progression.
Yes.
So there'll always be hand games, but the beauty of this film and what it highlights is how we innovate. Yes, exactly. That's it. I don't think it's about COVID. I don't think it's that suddenly hand games transitioned and moved to TikTok because we had been isolated for X amount of years. I think it's just a natural progression, like the beginning of the film, when you take something away or we came here with nothing, or you take something away from us and we will find something else.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is kind of, it's TikTok now. Who knows? Our PhD candidate and her question at the start around innovation and technology, who knows what it will morph into in 5 or 10 years. But I think that the essence, the foundation, is always going to be there. And even though we don't see as many kids doing hand games as we once did, I hung out with my nieces for Thanksgiving, and we played, we did hand games. I failed fantastically, but they crushed it, so. And
what I remember with some of the young girls we were playing with in the park, we were filming, they had their iPhones or their phones there, and they were playing, and then they were showing the playing together, and they were recording it and uploading it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, again, this innovation you're talking about, being together, but then sharing it and recording it and sharing it beyond that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to say that this is the last question, but go for it. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Okay, you can do it. Go for it.
I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for making this really good film, because it was really fun to watch, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to cry. I think that is a perfect ending to an absolutely wonderful evening. So, thank you all so very much for coming. Tell your friends. Go on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Get people to watch the film. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michéle. Thank you, Kiana.
Thank you, Marsha.